We are in a new season, and it is a season of transition and change. Now, as a consequence, so many of God's people, when we don't understand what's going on, it does create this uncertainty. So many people are finding that things they did before, or strategies, etc., are no longer effective. And if we don't understand what God is doing, then it can easily create this discouragement, that the challenge, that sense of we're off track and we don't know which way to turn. So today, we're going to look at what I believe God is saying to His people. We can see where there's some hope, and we will see where to apply our faith. We are in a season of transition and change. Now, I find for so many people, myself included, that when we don't understand the season, it easily creates a sense of uncertainty. And particularly in this season, what I think we find is many things we did in the past, strategies, etc., even those that we believe were from God, which I'll come back to, they're just no longer effective. Now, this can create moments of discouragement, frankly, and a real sense of, God, where are you in this? Have I missed it somewhere? Now, I want to share what God is doing, what I believe God is doing, and what His purpose is. And in the process, give us some hope, but also show us where to apply our faith. Now, I think nothing epitomizes this better than a conversation I just had a week ago with a ministry leader. Now, in his case, there is something he has known for quite some time God wants him to do. And it's scary. And it requires him to give up something that has worked well for him. Something that, frankly, he believes God gave him at that time. And is causing him to need to let go. And it's scary. It's literally like Peter getting out of the boat and walking on water. Now, in the course of the conversation with him, I was able to share with him some of what God has shown us and what He's done in us. And I think it really crystallized for me this sense that we are in a season of transition, and there's a purpose in this for many, if not all, of God's people. God is taking things from our past, things that we relied on, things that worked for us, and in many cases, things we believe God gave us. And God is saying, I want you to let go of those things. He wants us to move that reliance on things He gave us to an utter reliance on Him. See, God is challenging His people to trust Him at a whole deeper level. And so I was able to share with this leader what God was doing, and it helped him to have a confidence in that understanding that it was time to literally, as scary as it is, get out of the boat. Now, again, this is someone who's very clear that he knows and has had a sense for quite some time what God wanted him to shift. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does require us to trust Him at a whole deeper level. And I've seen that. I've seen it in so many people's lives. And so the reason I share this with us is that helping to have an understanding will give us a confidence that you are on the right track, that God does have a plan. He has a purpose. Isaiah 43, 18 and 19, it says something very profound that I believe is for this moment. And God says, forget the former things. Don't even think about them. And that's even things that worked for us, even things God gave us in the past. Forget about them. And He says, I'm doing a new thing. Don't you see the beginning of it? And He goes on, He says, I will make a path in the wilderness and streams in the desert. So what is God saying to His people? Those things that no longer work, that instead of trying to revive them, instead of trying to fix them, letting go and learning to rely on Him, letting Him show us the new thing He's doing, that shift that's happening. See, there's a transition, and I believe God is saying as we let go, then He begins to show us the new thing. And in the process, it can be that sense of, okay, God, where do we go from here? Where's that next step? Well, He does go on and say, I will make a path in the wilderness. In other words, He made a pathway where it didn't seem obvious. We don't have to figure it out. We just have to learn to rely on Him even more. And He does make streams in the desert. As we do rely on Him and as we follow the path as we see it, He will make the way. He'll make the provision. It is a season where God is calling His chosen people, His people, to a greater degree of trust. He's building a greater degree of faith. And He wants us to rely more and more on Him, not the things He's given us, not the things from the past. And again, that didn't mean they were bad. But He is saying it was good for the day, but it won't be good for where I'm taking you next. Now, in the process, it can be that sense of we don't know where to go from here. We don't know what it's going to look like. And I just want to leave on a final thought this. We do a series called Daily Builders. It's a little short 90 seconds verses that I think should challenge us as God's people. And I recently shared from Exodus 23:20. See, God was taking His people from Egypt and He was taking them to the promised land. And the whole process was so intimidating. They had no idea what they were going to do, how they were going to do it. Now, they knew that God was with them, but that doesn't always give us that reassurance. And He says something that again, I think we can apply faith to. And He does in verse 20. He tells them, I'm sending my angel ahead of you to make the way and guard over you and lead you on the path I have for you. It's time for us to just let go, however we do that, and do what I've done and just say, okay, God, that was the past. I don't want the past anymore. I want you. And I want the new thing that you have. And I trust that you are leading me. You're guarding me. You're making sure that, as scary as this might be, you're watching over and you're protecting us and you're making sure that we will get to the place you have for us to be. See, God is glorified as we let go of those things that are substitutes for His provision. As we learn to rely on Him and trust Him more, God is glorified, and there's a greater blessing for you and I